what would you say, to that individual who may be trying to go pro? What would you say the best steps to do that is?
The best steps to go pro is very similar to what you have to do to get a business to pop off.
Yeah.
You have to be good. You have to be a good skateboarder. You have to have a good product or good service.
So getting into that, you sold the brewery successfully. Congratulations
Thank
on
you.
that. What was that next journey?
The next journey was actually the creation of Commune Capital, which is we're a private equity real estate firm focused on multifamily and storage.
Welcome to the Chris Salerno Show, your go-to for real estate, business, health, and family insight. I'm Chris Salerno, CEO of QC Capital. Each episode, we explore the latest trends and expert advice from industry leaders. Whether you're an investor, entrepreneur, or seeking balance, this show provides an inspiration you need. Join us and elevate your game on the Chris Salerno Show. Welcome to the Chris Salerno Show. I'm your host, Chris Salerno. Very excited to have Mikey Taylor on the show, a pro skateboarder, also serial entrepreneur. We're going to talk about the breweries. That's going to be exciting to dive into. Also a huge developer in the multifamily and self-storage space, which we're going to dive into as well. Exciting market that we're living in. Hopefully rates drop next month. We'll see, knock on wood. But Mikey, thank you so much for joining me.
Thanks for having me.
I'm excited to, most definitely, I'm excited to dive into your background. But before we even get started, we're going to go all the way back to childhood.
Okay.
Who is Mikey in childhood? And talk to us about that journey all the way up to being a pro skateboarder.
Okay, good question. I don't know if I've actually ever been asked that. Childhood, I was somewhat of a shy kid.
Yeah.
Up until about third grade because my parents started me in school early.
Oh, did they?
And I wasn't ready to start. So
were you at that like cutoff where it's like, do we start early? Do we start later?
Exactly right. So my
Yeah.
birthday is August 29th.
Nice.
So it's like right on the button. And I was a little bit slow to just mature.
Yeah.
And so, first few years I was quiet. I had a couple friends. My parents told me they were going to hold me back.
Oh, really?
I was devastated.
Nice. It's all right. I got held back in first grade.
But here's what was interesting. When I got held back in third grade, which is a little bit later to do it. But once I got held back, I went from being like shy and quiet to like all of a
outgoing.
sudden. It was like personality.
It was just like a switch.
Confidence. It was a switch.
Really?
And so that was actually like pretty pivotal. I'm like so glad they did that.
I love that. That's
and then
good.
from that point on, I kind of became like almost the person that I should have been.
Love that.
And, thankfully I just didn't get trapped in, where I originally was.
Most definitely.
Then, I played sports as a kid. I'm pretty athletic. I'm very competitive.
Yeah. You're tall too. Basketball?
I'm tall, but back then I wasn't.
Oh, okay.
So, now really getting into it, I was 5'3", 95 pounds entering my senior year of high school.
No way.
Yeah, I was small.
Oh, wow. That's small. 95 pounds.
Yeah.
Holy cow.
So I broke 100 pounds my senior year. I remember like in PE class, when we'd weigh in, I broke 100 and everyone went
That's
nuts.
when they did it back in the day. Now they don't.
Yeah, I'm
do
old
that.
school, bro. Yeah. So I was a late bloomer, like all the way even to just like growing.
Wow.
Played hockey growing up, and then I started skateboarding.
Yeah.
And skateboarding kind of took.
What drew your interest to it? Because back in the day, I was never good on a board. I was good inline skating.
Right.
So inline skating, I'd do the bowl, half pipe, you name it. I used to live in Orlando, so we had Vans, huge warehouse there. I'd always go there. But skateboarding, I didn't really find the groove for it. How'd you come? I mean, obviously you're in California. Everyone's out and about, beautiful weather. But how'd you say, hey, I want to pick up a board and try it?
I had a friend who I thought was cool that got a skateboard. It was like that. What
was your first board? Do you remember?
It was a World Industries board.
Okay, very nice.
And he got it, and I was like, I wanted to be cool also. I wanted to fit in.
Yeah.
And so I got a skateboard also.
When you first got it, did you ever think you'd go pro?
No, I was a kid.
You're just like, hey, I just want to be cool to
thought it
fit
was
in.
cool. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. And at that time, like, I didn't even know what pro skateboarders were. I didn't think that was even something that like a random kid could achieve.
Like you can actually have a career in it. Wow.
Yeah, I had no clue. And so I just started skating, and then I got pretty obsessed with it, and I started getting good at it as well. And then at 16, my parents wanted me to get a job.
Okay.
And I didn't want to because I wanted to keep skating.
Yeah.
And so I basically convinced them to allow me to go down this path of trying to get sponsors or companies to give me free stuff.
Yeah.
So that I could get sponsored. And then I would take the free product and sell it to the local skate kids. So that would be my money. Right?
And roughly what year was this?
This is probably 1998.
Okay, 98.
1998. And then I ended up getting sponsors, started getting some free stuff. Had a
How
little
is
side
that
hustle.
convincing? I mean, you had to be a sales guy to convince your parents to say, hey, I want to go down this route to be a pro skateboarder.
Yeah, what I found about myself is if there's something I want to do,
Yeah.
I'm going to do it.
I love it.
Right? I didn't think I was a salesperson. It was
Yeah.
just, this is what I want to do. And they're the ones that like can potentially get in the way. And, you know, I better do everything I can
And
to
you
remove
were
it.
like, yeah.
And
it's not
so I
happening.
sold. And then, you know, as I got older, I started learning kind of how to become better at skills, how to become better at sales where it wasn't just my charisma that was getting me through it. There was actually like charisma blended with kind of a skill set.
Yeah.
But at that point, I just didn't want to stop skating. And then I started getting sponsored. Those sponsors started putting, you know, photos and videos of me out in the magazines and videos. And then I got the opportunity to go to Europe for the summer in 2001, which was when I was graduating high school. So I graduated high school, looked at my parents. I was like, I'm going to go on the skate tour. And
So you got invited to do the skate tour in Europe.
Yeah. So I got invited to go to, where was it? I did France, Germany, Italy.
How long was that total?
It was almost 4 weeks.
So
It was
4
almost a full
weeks,
month.
just graduated high school.
Yeah, and
You're
I'd
like,
never been out of the country really.
Wow.
Yeah,
So, and you're like, hey, I want to go to Europe. do the
Flew to
skate
New
tour.
York, knocked on the door of this photographer's house, never met him before.
No way.
Hey, how are you, Mikey? And then we flew from New York to maybe we went to like maybe London, and I think that's where it
Wow.
started.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. How did it unfold after that? I mean, talk to us some successes and also talk to us some learning lessons that you've went through too.
Yeah, so basically I started, you know, getting highlighted in magazines. I started making a little bit of money, not a ton. I was making like $800 a month.
Which is nothing.
It was nothing,
Yeah.
nothing. And so that was basically the first year, right? And it was just trying to get my name out there, try to get more name recognition. The second year, I started like really breaking through like the kind of the bunch.
Oh yeah.
And then I started getting better sponsors, and then I started making a little bit more money. And then I was in this video. It was a Transworld video called In Bloom. And that was like the video that like really broke people. Like
Really?
if you came out in that video, you were going to have a pretty successful career.
Wow.
And so I had a part in that video. And then what followed from that was my own skateboards, my own shoes, my own clothing lines.
Wow. So you went.
It turned into a full-blown career.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
And so you partnered with companies, started selling your merch.
Yeah, so basically what it looked like in the skate world is you would have your sponsors, and then your sponsors would give you a signature line in their brand. So I was sponsored by a shoe company, DC.
And at that time, I remember DCs. I've worn them. At that time, did you have an agent or who was in your corner to say, hey, this is how we need to shape this contract? Because a lot of kids, even, I mean, look at now, college is paying student athletes.
Right.
These kids come out of high school getting $1 million, $2 million contract. They don't know what to do. They go out and blow it, you know. So who was in your corner? How'd you really come to the business side of that? Talk about that.
So I had a manager or an agent in the very beginning, and they negotiated a deal for me. And the experience I had was that they didn't get me anything that I couldn't have gotten myself, and I was paying them 10% of the entire contract.
10% is good. I think now it's like 20.
It depends on the sport in the industry. Yeah,
Yeah.
for us, if it's like inside the skate industry, it's typically 10%. If it's outside skateboarding, it's 15, usually 15.
Like advertising,
potentially
endorsements,
20.
things like
Yeah,
that.
so like if you're going to get a corporate sponsor, you have the ability for it to be a higher percentage to the agent.
Got it.
But for me, it was like this person stepped in, negotiated really quick, stepped out, and then every single month she's taking 10% of my checks. And I looked at that and went, nah, I think I'm going to do the next one. And so I negotiated every single deal I ever had from that point on.
Wow.
I had attorneys look at them.
Oh, most definitely.
But
You had
I
to.
was the one that would go in and basically make the case for me and my value and what I wanted to get.
How is that first deal closing it yourself? What was that feeling like?
There was a part of it that was fun.
Yeah.
I just remember
Because now you're seeing the business side of it. You're not only performing at a very high level as an athlete, now you're dealing with the business side, the contracts, negotiations, things like that.
It was fun, I think, because it was competitive. But one thing I learned early on is if I could give myself leverage, I could get a better deal.
Yeah.
And so typically, if I had a sponsor where my contract was coming up, I would reach out and see if I had the opportunity to ride for any other companies, and if they
And
could
then
give me a
leverage
deal,
that.
boom. And then I would leverage that to get more with my current sponsor.
Yeah.
That is how deals are done. If you have leverage, you have the ability to drive the price up. If you don't, you might have to potentially fake it, but if your bluff gets called, you're in trouble.
Done.
Yeah. So that's what I did.
So it's high stakes, and you got to be
could be.
good.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just like poker.
It is like poker. And I just felt like I always had a gift to communicate.
Love that.
And so I was like, you know what? I feel like I'm built for this. Like, I don't have a problem talking about myself.
You're easy to talk to.
Yeah.
I could just feel it. Your energy and things like that.
Yep.
You're very easy to talk to.
Yep. So that was it. It was me negotiating my deals. And then I really started understanding the business side of it when I got my first shoe.
Okay.
So when I got my first shoe, it was the first time that I got plugged in with different components of the business. I had the, relationships with the shoe designers, and we had to work on basically designing
How
the
do you
shoe.
want to design it? Yeah.
Correct. And then, once we got that figured out, then it was me talking to the marketing team. How are we going to brand this? How are we going to market it? And then it was talking to the sales team, right? What are you guys doing to sell the shoe, and how could I get involved to help you do that?
Yeah.
And that's when I really started kind of enjoying the business side of skateboarding. I loved the art of skateboarding, but there was definitely this thing going on where I almost liked the business equally as much.
So that was gonna be my next question. Did you find that business side in general, just business, you gravitated towards a lot more? Eventually you did, because you sold a successful company, which we'll touch on here in a second. But did you find that taste of the negotiation, the contracts, that you're like, okay, I can definitely see myself doing this long term?
Yeah, I did.
Of the business.
I 100% did. But in the beginning, I kind of recognized that I could succeed in the business world of skateboarding. It took me a second to realize that I could take the skill here and apply it to a different industry.
Yeah.
So that came a little bit later down the road. But yeah, like I probably equally, it was probably, I liked the business side equally as much as the skateboarding side, but I definitely viewed it as the skateboarding is finite. I have a time frame in which I could do this. The business side, I don't.
Correct.
And so I put way more energy and focus into the craft, knowing that when it shifted, okay,
you got to be ready.
Correct.
Yeah. What would you say because it's a very highly competitive sport. I mean, trying to go pro and very highly competitive. A lot of people are skateboarders, especially out here in Cali. Right. What would you say, to that individual who may be trying to go pro, what would you say the best steps to do that is?
The best steps to go pro, it's very similar to what you have to do to get a business to pop off.
Yeah.
You have to be good. You have to be a good skateboarder. You have to have a good product or good service, right? Once you have that, you need people to know who you are, right? So then it just turns into marketing. So if you're good at skateboarding, how do you get more and more people to know who you are? And the more people that know who you are and then like you, the more demand you have to sell something.
Most definitely.
Right? Yeah. So that's really what it comes down to. If you're like a pro and if you're a skater and you want to go pro, look at what the other AMs around you are doing. And kind of try to stack yourself. Like, where do I land in the pack?
I mean, and back then, too, we're talking, late 90s, early 2000s. We didn't have social media around.
Yeah.
So I feel like it was a lot harder for you to go pro. Now people just hop on TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, keep posting their videos, and then, maybe a sponsorship will pop by one of their videos and say, hey, let's give this guy a call.
There's an element of social media that opened the door for some things.
Yeah.
As far as being seen, it opened the door for that.
But then higher competition.
It made it more saturated.
Correct.
And it raised the bar so much higher.
So now it's how are you going to separate yourself?
Yeah. So I think, if I was being honest, I think it was probably easier for me to go pro back then.
Oh, I believe that.
Even though it was harder to get discovered.
Most definitely. Yeah. Because right now, people are stepping up their type of tricks. They're, what they're doing, how big, how far, how many stairs, all of that at a different level because there's so much competition on social media.
That's right.
So finishing up that career, you're preparing for that switch. Talk us to that first business journey that you went down.
The first business journey was a company called Saint Archer.
Yeah.
It was a craft brewery. I did it with...
Now, are you a big brewery guy?
No, I wasn't I was not a big brewery guy. I drank beer, but
you weren't like a, enthusiast about it.
No, not at all. What I was somebody who recognized an opportunity and thought it was, I guess it's twofold. One, beer is cool.
Yeah.
And with skateboarding, everything has to be cool. So it was a good fit as far as like what we were doing before and what we were stepping out to do second. And then there was a lot of energy in the sector, right? The industry was growing pretty fast.
So when did you start winding down skateboarding?
Well, I started the brewery the brewery launched in 2012. We started working on it in 2011.
Okay.
And 2011 was the first year that I really kind of split my time as a pro skateboarder and then the business.
Got it.
And so I would say from 2011 to 2015 was the wind down.
Got it. And I think that's a perfect timing because Charlotte, North Carolina, I know last time I've looked, they had over 105 breweries in Charlotte, North Carolina. And one of the famous breweries, Wicked Weed, is in Asheville, sold to Budweiser, I think. Don't hold me to that. But they popped off, I would say, in the late teens and 2020 all the way through 2023. I mean, they're still going very strong, but it's great that you saw that opportunity and then you had a successful exit on that. How was, what did you take from your learning with the marketing, dealing with designers of the shoes, the branding of the business side of skateboarding into the brewery?
I would say the biggest thing we took from skateboarding into the beer industry was probably storytelling, right? It was with skateboarding, there's not a big enough, the product doesn't separate itself from other product well, right? Like all skateboards are basically the same skateboards underneath the graphic.
Yeah.
And so skateboarders have to get ultra good at branding and marketing really to convince a kid that one skateboard is better than the other when in reality they're the same thing. Correct.
Yeah.
So we kind of took that same philosophy to beer, except in the beer industry, you were actually able to create a good product and you were able to use the product to separate yourself from the others. We just took the branding and marketing and put like gasoline on top of our beer.
That's super important, is marketing's everything these days. I mean, look at COVID. COVID came and the companies that did not decide to go to Uber Eats or DoorDash ultimately failed if you were a restaurant because you had no foot traffic. People couldn't go and drive and pick it up. You had to use other means of delivery to keep your business afloat.
Right.
And marketing is super important with any type of business you do.
Yeah, it's everything. It's absolutely everything. So we applied that and it worked. Like we were able to garner a lot of attention. Now, attention is meaningless if you don't have either the service or the product to support it. Yeah. And so we spent a lot of time scaling up so that we can produce enough beer to basically meet the demand. And I would say probably the most valuable lesson we learned was if you're building something that you're trying to sell, you have to give the person who's buying it a reason to do so. And for us, we felt like if we created, let's say a ton of demand, and we only serviced, California, for example, but every other state wanted us, we felt like that would be very desirable for a big brand or big business to come in and go, wait a minute, you guys have demand everywhere. Yeah. You're only selling in California. We have distribution nationwide. This is the perfect business to buy and then put into our system and then blow it out.
Produce it.
Yeah, so that was a big one. And I think that probably the second one is a lot of entrepreneurs become not only the face, but the reason why the business works. Yeah. And if you remove them, you remove the business. If you're trying to sell something, that's not very desirable for a company coming in to purchase you. So I would say be mindful of how you're building it in the beginning if selling it is something you're going to want to do.
Yeah, no, I think going into a business, just like your developments that you do, you have to be mindful, is the plan to hold long-term? Is the plan to refinance, sell to a institution? Who may be that institution?
Right.
I think you have to have that, especially when you're building out that foundation of the business, because that is your ultimate exit and your ultimate business strategy at the end of the day.
Correct.
Yeah.
That's right.
So getting into that, you sold the brewery successfully. Congratulations on that. What was that next journey?
The next journey was actually the creation of Commune Capital, which is we're a private equity real estate firm focused on multifamily and storage. And that, when we sold the brewery, we all stayed for just under a year. And we all left. A lot of us had non-competes.
Yep.
And so I had, one partner that waited his non-compete out and then got right back into the alcohol space.
And you weren't
No,
thinking about
I wanted
that?
to do something different.
Yeah.
For me, I felt like we had created a model that disrupted, and we had a model that worked. But my concern was if I did it again in the same industry, I'm not sure it would have the same impact. And I was really scared of doing like 2.0, something 2.0. And so I wanted to find an industry that had never experienced what we did in craft beer that I could apply into, the new venture.
Oh, yeah.
And so when I looked at, multifamily, I looked at storage, just commercial real estate as a whole. It had all of the alerts that you'd want to see that went dying for something new, And, commercial real estate's boring. It's stale. Like none of the youth would ever think it's cool.
So it's that saying, boring businesses make money.
Yeah, boring businesses make money, but this is the thing. That still doesn't attract people.
It doesn't,
right? Like
no.
boring doesn't do it.
No.
And so I wanted to basically make investing cool for my generation and then the next one to follow.
How there's all different types. Let's talk multifamily.
Right.
There's all different types of real estate asset classes. You have class A, B, C, development. How did you land on, hey, we're going to develop these? We're not going to buy class C or D and renovate like your true traditional value add. We're going to actually develop ground up class A.
Okay, it took me
because like we talked about earlier before this, development's a whole different world.
the first multifamily project I did was a class C renovation.
Was it?
It was a deep value add.
Here in your hometown?
In Long Beach.
Okay.
It was a class C to almost like an A-. It was a big lift. And there was a reason why I did multifamily, but to really answer your question on why I chose development, there was something about that process that I didn't love. And this is not to judge people that do this strategy. It just wasn't for me. I didn't like that I was taking existing product that was already in the market and making it nice to the point that the people that were using it would never be able to use it again. And so I got to a point where I went, you know what? This is not for me. Like what I want to do, I want to find something that's distressed, that has no money coming in, and I want to build new. I want to add new units to the market. And it just kind of, I think, fit what I was looking for the purpose of it being as far as the real estate we were developing.
Most definitely.
And so we started basically doing all development projects inside of our multifamily portfolios.
All development,
All
strictly.
development, yeah.
Love that. I hope you're enjoying today's episode. Just a quick reminder to make sure you never miss an episode. Stay connected with us by following us on social media platforms, Instagram, Twitter, Threads, TikTok at Chris_Salerno_. And don't forget to subscribe to YouTube to catch the video versions of our episode. You'll get exclusive content, behind the scenes footage, and much more. Head over to YouTube, Chris_Salerno now, and hit the subscribe button. Stay tuned because we've got more great content coming right after this. And your hometown's here in California, a beautiful state, been here for a couple days now. Weather's great. It comes with some taxes and politics. How have you navigated to say, hey, I want to stay in my home state of California to do development? How has that been compared to saying, I want to go to the Southeast or the Midwest? Now the Midwest is booming. Everyone wants to be in the Midwest. Southeast was, booming prior to 2023 rate increases. What made you say, hey, we're going to stay in the state that I know the best?
Okay, so for me, this kind of goes back to personality, right? When I was a skateboarder, I tried to find ways to separate myself from everyone else.
Yeah.
When we did the brewery, we didn't go out and copy what everyone else was doing. We found a way that would separate our brand from the pack. I look at the type of real estate we do through the same lens. Where is everybody headed?
Yeah.
I'm not going there. I'm not going to Texas, right? I'm not going to Arkansas. I'm not going... I know you guys are from the Carolinas.
Yeah,
I love the Carolinas.
Florida.
I'm not investing there, right?
Carolinas, I will tell you, we are out of the multifamily space, 100% into car washes. We still have some very large groups that are actually out in the West and Midwest of the country that are coming to Charlotte because we're on every single Forbes list, you name it, of growth. And they've even asked us, hey, would you want to raise capital? Would you want to partner JV on some of these deals? And I'm like, guys, your numbers, I live 2 exits down from one of your properties. I don't know how you guys are making these numbers make sense.
Yeah, that's right. Because it's my view is if you're following where everyone else is going, there's no opportunity left.
No,
right?
no.
So I want to be, and where I try to be is, I want to be in the place that for the first 2 years, I'm going to hear everybody tell me I'm crazy. That's what I want to hear.
Yeah.
And then I want to get questions.
It's harder. It's harder to raise capital that way too.
Depends. It depends. It depends. For us, I think it's easier to raise capital doing what we're doing because I'm not selling something that's the same as everyone else. Now, that doesn't mean you're going to not get pushback in the beginning, right?
Correct.
I can't tell you how many people in the beginning go, you invest in California?
Oh yeah.
Right? But that opens the door for me to create something that they don't have access to, right? Like imagine you're raising money from investors and you're pitching the same thing that every other group is pitching them. Who are they going to choose? Right?
Agreed.
What I can tell you is right now, there's no one doing what I'm doing. Everybody's scared to do what we're doing.
A lot of
but
people
that
are.
only happens for a time, right? 18, 24 months from now, it's going to be a different story. And we'll have to find the new avenue that other people aren't seeing.
No,
right?
I definitely see that. Car wash sector is fairly new. It's not at a mass syndication scale.
Right.
And just recently, about a year or about 3 months ago, 2 months ago, KKR just bought a huge investment stake into Quick Quack Car Wash out here on the West Coast.
Right.
And that skyrocketed because everyone's like, oh, KKR came into the car wash sector. We want in. And you could see the leads just pouring in at a greater scale into our company because of that. But at the very beginning, a lot of people were very hesitant of it.
Right.
And it noticed it did take a little more time. But the individuals that are very sophisticated, they really saw it and they jumped on too.
Yeah. 100%. But I think there's how you communicate it.
Oh, yeah.
There's your experience. Like there are a lot of factors that go into it. You can't just go do something different and go, oh yeah, the money's going to flow
Correct.
in, right?
Yeah.
It does have a different set of challenges, but if you know how to use those challenges, it can be very powerful when it comes to raising money.
Most definitely. Let's talk on self-storage. Totally similar, but a little different asset class, different technology you have to do. What got your eye open to the self-storage industry?
Okay, self-storage for me was an investment that was brought to me when I was younger.
Is this before skateboarding?
This
or
is while
during?
I was skateboarding.
So while you were skateboarding,
Yep.
Talk us through that.
When I was skateboarding, somebody brought me a storage opportunity
As
an LP, as a limited partner,
got
so
it.
passive investment. And I made my first investment. It was not a lot of money.
Yeah.
And what I experienced was a quarterly dividend and some growth. And I was like, whoa, this is cool. And then I put more.
I'm skateboarding and now I'm seeing some investments come back.
Yep. And so I experienced with storage what a lot of our investors experience with us, which is a test run.
Yep.
And then it working and then wanting to invest more and then more and then watching the total kind of investment do its doubling and then reinvest. And so I just had a great experience from a return standpoint in that asset class.
I love that.
It's boring as all. I mean, now you talk about boring businesses.
This is
boring
all
businesses.
it is metal tins and a door.
That's right.
Yeah.
So it's boring businesses. They cash flow well. To make storage exciting, it's a feat, but we do pretty well with our storage portfolio.
I love that. And do you mimic the same type of footprint with your multifamily with self-storage?
It's a little bit different.
Geographical locations, things like that.
No, location-wise, we're all over the place.
Okay.
So our model on storage, we look for big box retail that goes vacant. So we want...
I love that. Like Sears or
Yep,
Toys
exactly.
R Us, those big
Exactly.
retail.
Exactly.
Smart. You go in, the foundation's already there. It's already built.
Yep.
And all you do is you basically modular inside units,
Correct.
different sizes and things like that based off specs in the market.
Correct. So that's what we do.
Love that.
Doing that is difficult because cities don't typically like storage done that way.
Yeah.
And so because of that, our footprint is, it's checkered. It's, Illinois, Iowa, Ohio, Washington, California. I mean, we're pretty spread out.
Yeah. And I think it's very helpful too, because you currently sit on with the city here in your hometown. So I think it's helpful going into those type of cities. You understand their lingo. Like we talked about, it's a little bit of, it's not a little, it's a lot of politics when you start dealing with that.
Yep. So being a city council member has helped understand how cities think.
What made you want to do that? Because again, that's time, energy that you're spending on that.
Yeah, it is. Really what it came down to, like where I live here, this is where I grew up. Mm-hmm. So I grew up here. My wife was my neighbor growing up. So she grew up here. Our parents are still here. We have a lot of grandkids, throughout all of us. And we're experiencing something very special, which is kind of like that small town vibe
Yeah.
of, the people that you're doing life with, and there's
Love
now
that.
multiple generations of it. And my wife started talking about looking in other areas to live. And I was like, how do I take this off the board? I like it here. But some of the things that
Is
she was
hop on the city
looking
council
for,
board.
some of the things that she was looking for in other areas, like she was valid in that. Like, we're missing it here.
She had a good argument.
Yeah, and to be real specific with you, like our community is phenomenal for kids, right? Up until 18. And then from 18 to about 40, not much here.
Not good.
And then from 40 to, retirement, it's amazing. So we
So
just
that
have a
little
spot
window.
there that has some opportunity to kind of create something new.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what got me involved. It was like, how do I get involved to help create something that can fill that gap in a way that, doesn't sacrifice for my business? Because this is, this still relies on me pretty heavily for our company
most
to
definitely.
run. And so I didn't want to jeopardize that. And, I'm married. I have 4 kids. I want to make sure I can still be
that.
a good husband and father.
Yeah.
And we landed on city council.
There you go. And now you're staying put.
Yep. Yeah, now I'm here. Yep, that's right.
Let's touch on the 4 kids. I have a son, 4.5, going on 25. Single father, a lot going on, running a business and things like that. How are you being the best husband you can be, staying on top of your health? You're working out still while you're running a great and phenomenal company, and then also being the best father you can be and role model to your kids.
It's come down to prioritizing and being present. I would say would be the 2 things.
I will say that's huge with my son. When I hang out with him, I'll shut off the phone or put the phone in the other room, and I'll get on the floor and play cars or Formula One with him with cars. But he knows my phone's not near me.
Yeah, that's right.
And it's giving that quality time.
Yeah, that's right. So, for something like my wife and I, we have a date night scheduled every single week, right? Sitter comes.
Multiple successful people I talk to, they do that. They have it Thursdays or Wednesdays. Some night is dedicated and they never miss it.
Yep.
This is date night. We're going out. Let's enjoy life.
Yep. So we do that. That's kind of one of our priorities. And then I don't work on Saturdays and Sundays anymore.
So no Saturdays. We just interviewed a big time politic guy, and he said the same thing. He said Saturdays and Sundays, no work.
Yeah, that's how I am too. So I work very hard Monday through Friday.
Yeah.
And, I do get home. I typically get home sometime around 5:36. And then we do dinner every night, considering I don't have a council meeting.
Correct, yeah.
And then I put the kids to bed, and then I don't see them the next morning when I wake up. I'm in the office early. So Monday through Friday, I'm grinding. And then Saturday and Sunday, it's no work, and it's us doing family stuff.
How are you staying on top of your health? Health's very important these days with all the different type of foods out there.
Yep.
I know one thing I do is I'm a big lover of the factor meals. They come in, 2 minutes, boom, done, have a nice meal ready to go for me, because during the day, it's so hard. Unless I have a lunch meeting, it's so hard to really make sure, I'm getting the right intake in, working out, things like that. How are you staying on top of your health?
Like as far as eating, we're pretty...
working out.
We're pretty strict on what we eat.
That's good. That's good.
Yeah, there's zero processed food at all. It's heavy protein. Kind of managing insulin might be another way of looking at it. No insulin spikes. I want no sugar at all. So it's, carbs are barely anything.
It's wild. If you go now and look, and I feel like something's changed in the government with the regulatory systems on advertisement and what they have to disclose. But if you look, like even on a bag of goldfish, which we don't have that in my household, but if you look on the back, it says bioengineered chemicals.
Right.
Which I started looking on the back of a bunch of stuff I ate, and I look and I'm like, wow, yeah, I'm not eating this anymore. Like it just started popping up. So I look on every food I look at now. I do that.
Yeah, basically. I mean, RFK last week touched on this.
I know, and he's fit. I mean, you look at him; he's fit at his age.
Right. So there's if you want your mind blown, right? If you want your mind blown, look at what happened when the regulation hit the cigarette industry, and look at what the cigarette companies started buying.
Yeah.
Right? They started buying food brands, and they brought in a lot of those scientists to make sure our food was more addicting, right?
Yeah.
That's when sugar was brought into everything.
Oh my God.
So you ask people why do you look around and no one looks healthy? Why are we just, look at heart disease, cancer, all of it is happening earlier. Like we are.
It's because what we're putting into our system.
Exactly right.
And what's being approved.
Exactly
I
right.
mean, if you look at European, I mean, you were out there early. They have totally different foods than us.
That's right.
Totally different ingredients.
That's right. So what you can eat in Europe is different than what you can eat in America.
Most
right?
definitely.
So with that said, like what we eat, it is, it's organic, it's grass fed, it's almost no carbs, it's heavy protein.
Love that.
It's a lot of water. I'm making sure that the stuff that goes in is actually energizing me, right? And then from a workout, my wife and I, what we found is when you eat this way, you don't have to be crazy on workouts, right? We'll take the kids every afternoon.
95% of the way you look is what you eat.
100%.
If you want abs, if you want to slim up your face, your body, 96% is what you eat and put into your system.
100%. So this is how basic it is. We go on a walk. 30 to 45 minutes.
After dinner?
After dinner with the kids.
It feels good.
It feels great. And there's 3 sprints in that walk.
So you add some sprints
That's
in
it. 3 sprints in the walk. And then that's all we need.
There we go. And the kids are on board with it. I love involving kids early. With my son, I'm big into meditation. And there's some mornings when he's sleeping, I'll go meditate before he wakes up, like on the weekends. And he'll get upset with me. He'll say, Dad, you didn't wake me up to meditate with you. And he knows, and I'm working on breathing work with him. And it's helped tremendously because when he would get upset out in the real world, because we all get upset with certain things, when he would, I'd say, son, let's breathe. Deep breaths, remember, and then he calms down so much faster after bringing meditation into his life. But I am sure when he grows up and he has kids, he's going to teach them meditation because we did it.
Right.
Your children, when they grow up and have kids, they're going to say, I remember when my parents walked after dinner. That's something that we're going to do too.
Yeah, let's hope so. I like that. Yeah, that's right.
Hopefully.
So that's what we're doing. That's it, and it works very well. Energy's through the roof.
Love that.
Yeah, everything's good.
I love that. Where do you see the market going? I mean, well, let's hope interest rates drop next.
Real estate markets?
Next month. I think they will. Where do you see the real estate market here in California going with multifamily self-storage across the United States, but multifamily here in California?
The interest rates are dropping for sure. There's no way
I
around
agree
that
with
anymore.
that. I think so.
Storage is a little bit saturated, actually.
I think so.
Yeah, the storage side, like we've seen cap rates move, finding stuff right now.
And I've noticed rents dropping or rates dropping in the self-storage. I've noticed that across the board. And we were in beginning of 2023, we were looking at different asset classes, and that's when we dove deep into the car wash sector. We saw that self-storage was saturated, and we're like, hey, it's not making sense.
Yeah, so there's good and bad when that happens, right? If you own storage, you just want to make sure that you weren't over leveraged and that you don't run
good
the
markets,
risk.
good locations.
Bingo. So for us, like, in some of our newer product, it's leasing up a little bit slower than normal. It feels like a softening in the market, but on the other end, you're able to buy at a discount. When it softens, cap rates move. That allows you to get in at a cheaper price. So we are currently buying as well. We closed on a new project 2 weeks ago.
Congratulations!
Sacramento. Thank you.
How's the debt environment with self-storage going?
It's okay.
Is it all right?
The debt market's challenging almost across the board.
Oh my God, yeah.
It's a little bit bigger of a check size down.
Is it?
But like we haven't had a problem getting lending.
It's good.
It's just, like the multifamily side, at a minimum, we're putting 40% down.
Minimum.
Yeah.
Yeah. Plus reserves in some cases.
It's a lot
and a lot, they're diving deep into the sponsor's background even more now.
Correct.
They don't want just a couple years experience. They want someone that has 5-10 years experience because of what's happening.
That's right. So we have good relationships with lenders.
Love that.
We've been in business a long time. Our balance sheet looks great. So we're able to get debt.
I love that.
But it's not, 80% loan to cost. That's not for us. As far as where I see the overall market, multifamily, it's going to be regional specific. Mm-hmm. In California, like we've already seen multifamily correct by almost a full percentage point. Wow. This happened last year.
Really?
Right. So we saw it move by probably 3/4 of a point, which is big for us. For California multifamily, that's a correction.
That's huge.
Now from this point on, I think you're only going to see cap rates compress.
Yeah.
I don't think you're going to see any more softening.
Yeah, I agree with you on that, especially in the Southeast. I think we're going to see cap rates compress once interest rates start to take a dive. I think in the next 3 to 5 years, we're going to see a lot of supply hit the market, and it's going to be a domino effect of 1 to 3% on the multifamily side with cash flow returns in the Southeast.
I think, depending where you build, that's the big one.
In the
there
Southeast.
are a lot of markets that are going to get overbuilt.
Yeah,
no doubt about it. And then in that, you'll see rents come down. You'll see prices come down. You'll see a correction.
This year alone, Charlotte, North Carolina had over 15,000 units come online.
That's right.
Not even get ready for permitting and developing. Just come online.
That's right. So you're going to see markets like that. Idaho, I think, is going to fall off a cliff. Like there are markets where you're going to see a
I
big
think
correction.
Idaho, South Dakota, because everyone and their mother, no offense, but they're all going into these Midwest, and the Midwest trails the Southeast in the market trends, essentially. You know, when something happens early in the Southeast, Midwest is a little lag. They're 5-6 years behind, kind of lag period. But I think you're spot on.
There's nothing that stops building in Idaho. Yeah. Right? The land is not an issue. They pass everything. It's done quick. So
you'll see companies are moving there.
Yeah, you'll see a correction there.
I think so.
California, I don't think we're going to see it.
No.
No. It's too hard to build. It is way too hard to build. There's limited land.
I was going to say, you have the mountains, you have the coast.
That's right.
And right here in the middle has already been built substantially.
So this is the case for California. We're 2.2 million residential units short.
Wow.
Right?
Just for California.
For California. Our state on average builds 100,000 units per year, right? Over the last 10 years, we put 104,000 units on average each year, right? We are nowhere near the target. And then look at what happened for the last year. There's been like almost no development.
Slowdown, yeah.
Right?
Oh, yeah.
Full pullback.
That's the biggest thing in Charlotte. When I was trying to understand the market trends in Charlotte, I went to a couple architects and developers, and I was able to get the permits for the city, and I noticed a trend decline. Very little permits for multifamily all of last year.
That's right. So I'm not sure that we are going to see an oversupplied situation in California for a long, long time.
Yeah, really. And there's, what's the solution to catch up? You know, that's the big thing.
Well,
incentivize developers with tax incentives to hurry up and develop. It's a tough conversation.
My thought that if I wanted people to build, I would do it by deregulation and incentive. Yeah. Right. I would make it so that dollars want to come here. That's not the state's outlook. Right?
No.
Our state does not do that. They don't release
it's not attractive.
Well, it depends, right? It depends on your outlook, right? If you're Texas, what did they do? Yeah. Deregulate and incentives. And now they have one of the most booming economies.
Look at Florida. Florida.
Correct.
Florida's booming.
Florida's the same way.
Yeah. Median household income's high, everything. Opposite direction.
California goes in the opposite direction.
Yeah.
If they're concerned with housing, they don't try to make it easier to build. They try to subsidize more.
Yeah.
So the government just gets more and more involved, and I hope that their intentions are good, but the outcome is the opposite of their intentions.
Yeah.
Like the outcome is not that real estate becomes less expensive. It's that real estate prices go up. So they just never let the market be the market.
When do they realize it and say, hey, we need to change this?
Yeah, if net migration loss keeps becoming a thing.
Yeah, it may. A lot of people are moving out.
So if that holds off, if that's not like a small trend that happened during lockdown.
Yeah.
Okay. That'll be a reason. Like you can't run this state, which has never had net migration loss ever.
Yeah.
When you're starting to see a year over year, that's the type of pressure.
Because you're losing revenue.
That's right.
You're losing revenue. The businesses in the state are losing revenue.
That's right.
Everyone's going to start going downhill.
That's right. So that's what it would take potentially.
Wow. Well, hopefully it doesn't get to that. You guys got beautiful weather out here, plus In-N-Out Burger.
We have In-N-Out.
Yeah, right. You guys got In-N-Out.
That's
so,
right.
Mikey, I know we are coming up on time. I don't want to take too much of it. Very valuable of your time. I want to thank you for being on the podcast. We'll make sure all your contact information is below. Wealth of knowledge when it comes to development and what you're doing. I love what you're doing for your kids, the after dinner walk, everything. So thanks so much for joining me.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Most definitely.
Thank you for tuning in to the Chris Salerno Show. We hope you enjoyed today's episode and gained valuable insight
to help you along your journey. Don't forget to subscribe and leave us a review on your favorite podcast platform. If you have any questions or topics that you would like to cover, feel free to reach out directly to me. Shoot me a message on Instagram at Chris_Salerno_. Until next time, keep pushing forward and stay inspired.